Hi everyone, Jim here. Welcome to my channel. Well, it's Cimmerian September. We're almost at the end of Cimmerian September. There's only a few days left. And I'm going to share with you today what I've been threatening to share with you for almost a year now, and that is my Berkley Medallion Robert E. Howard paperbacks. There are 16 in total. Now, these books feature the pure text of Robert E. Howard, and that was editor Carl Edward Wagner's goal, was to reprint all of Robert E. Howard's text in its pure form as it was back in Weird Tales magazine, because up to that point we didn't have pure Robert E. Howard stories. We had the muddied down version of Conan in the Lancer Ace paperbacks, and that's pretty much all we had back in the day until these books started coming out in 1978. Now, I picked up Marches of Valhalla when I was 14, and at the time I thought it was a Conan book because I had read the Conan comics. I'd read a couple of the Ace paperbacks, and when I saw Conan in big letters, I thought it was a Conan book. And I must admit, I was a little disappointed when I got it home or on the bus ride home when I realized it wasn't a Conan book. But then soon as I started reading the first paragraph from The Grey God Passes, I was hooked, and I realized that Robert E. Howard was a very special writer, and it's been a lifelong love since then. So these 16 paperbacks are the core of my Robert E. Howard collection. Everything that has come after came from these 16 books. As soon as I had the Marches of Valhalla, I ran out and I got the rest of them when I could, when funds were available. But it wasn't long before I had them all, except for one, which I'll talk about when I get to it. But I want to go through these. I want to share them with you, maybe talk a little bit about each one. But yeah, I think you'll enjoy this. And stay tuned for the end. I'm going to... there's posters in some of these, and as a 14-year-old kid not knowing any better, I took all the posters out of the paperbacks and I put them up on my wall. But I still do have those posters, and I'm going to share them with you at the end of the video, so stay tuned for that. So there's that one, Marches of Valhalla. All these covers are done by Ken Kelly, and they are brilliantly done, and I've never seen him do as good of a job since he did these covers. And here we have El Murik, which is Robert E. Howard's one and only try at a science fiction planetary romance story. It didn't get published in his lifetime, and it was finished by another writer, but for the most part, this is pure Robert E. Howard, and it features this character, Esau Cairn. And here we have horror paperback, Black Canaan. And this features the stories, sorry, I didn't tell you the stories in the first one. Black Canaan, The Land Est, The Haunter of the Ring, The House in the Oaks, The Cobra in the Dream, Dermot's Bane, People of the Black Coast, The Dwellers Under the Tombs, The Noseless Horror, and Moon of Zimbabwe. And that's Black Canaan. And then we have a book of Howard's detective stories. This is Skullface, which features his villain Cthulhu of Egypt, which you see on the cover there, and his hero character Steve Corcoran, which is a name he used quite often in his stories, Robert E. Howard. So this is Skullface, and there's the back cover. Again, I'll show you the posters that I do have at the end of the video. So that's kind of a Fu Manchu-like story. And it's very recommended. I mean, I enjoyed the story greatly. And I know Robert E. Howard didn't really enjoy writing detective stories, but the detective stories in here are very pulpy, very action-driven, and I enjoyed them greatly, very atmospheric. And here we have Son of the White Wolf, which features his Alborak character, Francis Xavier Gordon, and that's his desert adventurer. And these are great stories. I read them for Cimmerian September. All his Alborak stories I read for Cimmerian September this year. This features the stories Blood of the Gods, The Country of the Knife, and Son of the White Wolf. And here we have The Swords of Shahrazar. And this features his Kirby O'Donnell character, who is similar to Alborak, but his motivations are different from Francis Xavier Gordon. Kirby O'Donnell is more of a soldier of fortune, whereas Francis Xavier Gordon was trying to help the people of the region. He wasn't in it for the fortune or the glory, but Kirby O'Donnell is. But that's the Swords of Charizard, probably one of my favorite covers in the series. They're all good, let's face it. This one here, I didn't get this one till years later because I didn't know that it existed. This is a book of his westerns, Robert E. Howard's westerns, called The Last Ride. And this still has the poster in it. This is the only one that I never took the poster out, so I don't have a separate poster of this one. The poster's still inside. But this features his stories. Sorry, my voice is a little off today for some reason. This features his stories: The Last Ride, The Extermination of Yellow Donnery, Knife, Bullet, and Noose, The Devil's Joker, Vulture's Sanctuary, Lost Shooters of Cowtown, and Gunmen's Debt. Now, there's many scholars that believe if Robert E. Howard had lived, he would have carried on writing Western stories as opposed to the sword and sorcery stories of Conan. He was going more to frontier and regional kind of stories than the fantasy-driven stuff that he did in Weird Tales. So, yeah, that's just a great cover. I love that cover. Okay, now we're getting into the Conan books. There was only 3 of them. Wagner's plan was to reprint all 21 stories, the original Howard text, but he only managed to reprint 8 of them in the 3 volumes because of copyright issues, unfortunately. So that's Red Nails with the Ken Kelly cover, one of my favorite Conan covers. And of course, inside we have Hugh Rankin artwork. And Carl Edward Wagner, kind of what he liked to do with these Conan stories, he liked to, lead into it from the introduction into the story like you were diving into a Weird Tales story back in 1935, which I thought was kind of cool as a kid. He would end the introduction like this. But now let's step aside for Robert E. Howard. It is late spring of 1935. Despite the wretched Margaret Brundage cover, you have just plunked down a quarter for the May issue of Weird Tales. You did that because the issue contains the first half of a new Conan serial, Beyond the Black River. And then you open it up, and you see the map of the Hyborian Age, and you get right into the story, Beyond the Black River. And just a lovely, beautiful paperback. And the next Conan one is People of the Black Circle with his beautiful embossed cover. Another just fantastic cover. And this features the stories The Devil in Iron, The People of the Black Circle, A Witch Shall Be Born, and Jewels of Gwalior. Now, most of these I've been able to replace with editions that have the posters, and that is People of the Black Circle. And here we have The Hour of the Dragon. And this is Robert E. Howard's one and only Conan novel, full-length novel. And he wrote this for a British publisher who, and the deal fell through because the publisher closed their doors. So Robert E. Howard had this full-length Conan story, which he sold to Weird Tales, and it was printed in 5 installments, I think, in Weird Tales back in the day. Great book, great story. And these next ones didn't have posters in them, but they're still part of the same series. Here we have the pirate book, Black Volmay's Vengeance. And this has the stories. And a lot of these stories, the Alborak stories and these pirate stories, were adapted into Conan stories by L. Sprague de Camp and heavily edited. So having these original stories the way Robert E. Howard intended, that was extra special with these books. This has Swords of the Red Brotherhood, Black Volmay's Vengeance, and the Isle of Pirates' Doom. And that is Black Volmay's Vengeance. Wonderful pirate stories in there. And then we have another Alborak book, The Lost Valley of Iskander, which features the stories The Daughter of Erlik Khan, The Lost Valley of Iskander, and Hawk of the Hills. And then we have the Dark Agnes stories in this volume called Sword Woman. That great red Sonya-like cover. But she was a swordswoman in France, 16th century France, I do believe, and she had a great influence on C.L. Moore's Gerald of Jory. We have Sword Woman, Blades for France, Mistress of Death, which was finished by Gerald W. Page, The King's Service, and The Shadow of the Hun. Just a great book to have. And here we have another book of Robert E. Howard's Westerns called The Vultures of Wahpeton, which is a famous Western story of his, and it did not have a happy ending, as a lot of Robert E. Howard stories don't have happy endings. But that particular story, he did have two different endings to that story, because I think publisher didn't like the dour ending that Robert E. Howard had wrote and wanted a happier ending. So there is two versions of The Vultures of Wahpeton out there. And this has the stories, The Vultures of Wahpeton, Showdown at Hell's Canyon, Drums of the Sunset, Wild Water, and an afterword by Glenn Lord. And he talks about the story and the different versions there are. These next two are just like a variety of different stories in the book of Robert E. Howard. So there's no particular book full of Solomon Kane or King Gall volumes in this, but there are King Call and Solomon Kane stories within these two books, the book of Robert E. Howard and the second book of Robert E. Howard. Now, there's some great stories. It's full of verse, Robert E. Howard's poetry. There's Pigeons from Hell is in the book of Robert E. Howard, Robert E. Howard's famous horror story. Pit of the Serpent, that's his sailor Steve Costigan story, famous story, The Pit of the Serpent. We have one of his historic stories, Red Blades of Black Cathay. We have a Western, Knife, Bullet, and Noose. We have She-Devil, one of his spicy stories. Black Wind Blowing, one of his detective stories. There's a King Cole story, The Curse of the Golden Skull. And that's the book of Robert E. Howard. And in the second book of Robert E. Howard, we have Sword Woman reprinted in this from the other volume. We have The Striking of the Gong, which is another King Cole story. We have The Footfalls Within, a Solomon Kane story. There's a couple of Westerns in here, a couple of horror stories, and we have a couple of his historic stories in here. And again, these two books are full of Robert E. Howard's poetry as well, along with the stories. So these are just great books to have. And I think they're also available in Zebra editions, if you can find them. But yeah, those are my Berkley Medallion Robert E. Howard paperbacks. Great books to have. As I said, they're very special to me. They're the core of my Robert E. Howard collection. And stay tuned. I'm going to show you the posters if you care to see them. And so that's it for me for now. I will see you guys very soon. Until next time, take care and keep reading. Well, here are the posters from the Berkley Medallion books as promised. This is from Skullface. We have Son of the White Wolf. Swords of Shahrazar. Beautiful work by Ken Kelly. Here we have Almuric. Black Canaan. Here's the cover from Red Nails. Hour of the Dragon. People of the Black Circle. And finally, Marchers of Valhalla. Let me know which one's your favorite in the comments.